This is Chapter 5, Audience Analysis. Public speaking is a shared activity. Speakers jointly create meaning with audiences. Public speaking is an audience-centered activity where the speaker considers the needs and interests of the audience. And audience analysis is the process of gathering information about people in the audience so a speaker can understand those needs, values, and expectations. So you got to know your audience so you can jointly create meaning with them. And that's how they can understand the message and remember your message as well. So when you're adjusting to your audience, first you want to find an appropriate way to acknowledge and greet them. And you might acknowledge their time and presence, or do this just by establishing eye contact. Now, in your classroom speeches, it's not necessary to say, "Thank you all for being here," because that is, it's required that they're there. You don't really need to thank them, and it can be a little distracting. Now, if you're in a different type of situation, giving a speech, you want to say, "Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that you came all the way here to listen to me talk," that sort of thing. You also want to choose a worthwhile topic. Your topic should reflect regard for the audience. You know, they don't want to listen to a speech that's too simple or a topic they already know a great deal about. So you want to choose a topic that's interesting enough for you to research and your audience to listen to. We also have clarity. We want to be able to use a straightforward vocabulary and avoid convoluted sentences. There are often more than two perspectives on important controversial topics, and they can confront people's fundamental and closely held values. And so how you treat your audience is just as important as how you treat your topic. You want to use that straightforward vocabulary to indicate that you are treating the topic carefully and importantly. And also respecting your audience means that you avoid offending, excluding, or trivializing the beliefs and values that they hold. You also want to adapt to audience needs. So audiences differ in their perspectives and readiness to accept new ideas. And every member of every audience has his or her own frame of reference. And this is generated by unique life experiences. And we have a few categories of these life experiences. First, we have demographic information. And this is like gender, age range, marital status, race, ethnicity, and those impact an audience's perspectives and needs. And then we have socioeconomic status, which refers to characteristics like income, wealth, level of education, and occupational prestige. And then finally, we have psychographic information. And this is the beliefs, attitudes, values, and opinions that are often difficult to predict. But those are the different categories of life experiences that can add to your frame of reference. We also need to consider audience diversity. This refers not only to racial and ethnic groups, but also to religion, sexual orientation, body size, physical, mental ability. Anything can make you diverse. And being mindful of diversity means being respectful of all people and avoiding racism, ethnocentrism, stereotyping, sexism, ageism, elitism, all sorts of isms. We want to avoid those. We also want to avoid stereotyping, which is the tendency to assume that people with certain visible characteristics in common also share the same likes or dislikes. It's easy to assume that people from a given culture are alike, but they're not. You know, social roles, life experiences, circumstances, all of those things vary. Okay, so this kind of leads to your next one: avoid offending your audience. If you alienate the audience, they will stop listening. Jokes that refer to names or cultural characteristics are insulting and inappropriate. And so we have 4 guidelines to ethical language choices that are important to know. First, you want to be accurate. Present the facts accurately. Second, be aware of the emotional impact and make sure you're not manipulating feelings. Third, avoid hateful words. So refrain from language that disparages or belittles people. And then be sensitive to the audience. Know how audience members prefer to be identified or labeled. Ethical speaking is sincere speaking. We have credibility coming into play here, and ethos or credibility is the perception that the speaker is honest, knowledgeable, and rightly motivated. And so, are you respecting your audience as individual human beings? Are you addressing their needs and interests? Is your topic appropriate for them? Does the audience trust your motivations? Those all lead into ethical speaking. We do have 3 types of audience analysis. The first is demographic analysis, and this is used to predict audience characteristics. So we have age is one, because audience age, there's a lot of differences between life experiences and perspectives between people in different age groups. And again, talking to 5-year-olds is different than talking to 20-year-olds, which is different than talking to 40-year-olds. Another demographic is gender. We also have culture, religion, group membership, and group membership can include academic majors. We always joke, but academic majors each have their own sets of values, goals, principles. We might also have political parties, campus organizations, volunteer groups. Those are all group membership. Another demographic would be education. And then the last one is occupation. So just knowing the different demographics of your audience can help you tailor your message to them. The second type of audience analysis is psychographic, and this concerns characteristics like values, opinions, attitudes, and beliefs. We talked about that just a little bit ago. These aren't as straightforward or as measurable as demographics, just because we might value different things differently. We might value equal opportunity differently. We might define it differently. So it's a little bit more difficult. And then we have situational analysis, and this refers to characteristics related to the specific speaking situation. And so this might be audience size. With a large audience, you might have to work harder to produce visual and audio material that reaches people in the back. You might also not be able to interact as more informally with a larger audience. Second is specific occasion. So award ceremonies, conventions, celebratory events call for specific speeches. However, funerals, delivering bad news, those call for very different messages. And so you want to avoid traumatizing the audience while providing concrete, specific information. And so that's what it means with dealing with the specific occasion and analyzing for it. Another aspect of the situation is voluntariness. And this voluntariness, that sounds funny. It refers to whether or not the audience members want to be there. So a voluntary audience wants to attend. A captive audience is required to be there, which means they might be uninterested or they might give only grudging attention. In either case, you should pick topics and comments that pertain directly to members of the audience. So in class, you have a captive audience. We're kind of all required to be there. And so you want to give them something interesting to pay attention to. And the last aspect of the situation is the physical setting. In a classroom, at least the setting is familiar. The classroom might not be ideal, but it is familiar to you. If a speech is to be presented in an unfamiliar setting, you should visit it ahead of time, check out any factors that might affect how you should present the speech. You want to look at the presentation equipment, look for noise, any distractions. Maybe there's a huge pole in the middle of the room that you'll need to work around. Maybe you were thinking that you wanted everybody to sit in kind of a horseshoe shape, but this particular room has tables bolted to the ground. So you have to adjust to the physical setting. Next, we'll move into conducting the audience analysis. And these are just systematic strategies for gathering audience information. First is direct observation. And this is examining patterns of behavior. These can tell you a lot as long as you're careful at how you present or interpret the behaviors. You might listen in on conversations as long as they aren't private. This can tell you what's going on in people's minds. And to listen ethically, you need to determine before the fact that conversation is not private. You don't want to listen first and then determine that it's too private. So I'm not saying overhear conversations. I'm saying just listen to what people are talking about generally. Interviews are another way you can conduct an audience analysis. And this is a one-on-one exchange where you ask questions and someone provides answers. These can be conducted in person, over the phone, or by writing or texting, emailing. You don't want to use the interviews to delve into private areas of the respondent's life. These are more time-consuming than surveys, however. Now, surveys are the next one. These are a set of questions administered to many respondents. When you're conducting them, you need to tabulate the results. They can be anonymous and collected quickly, so those are bonuses. You do need to make sure that survey questions are directly related to your speech topic. You want to keep both interviews and surveys short. You want to make sure respondents know that their participation is voluntary. And you want to interview or survey at least 10 to 20 people. Now remember, people aren't always honest in their answers because they give socially desirable responses, which is when you give responses that you think the person wants to hear, or things that people accept as okay to say. Let's see, what else? We have impression management situations going on here. So you want to be able to frame your questions in ways that they can answer honestly. Next way to conduct an audience analysis is through a focus group. And a focus group is a group of 3 to 8 people who meet to respond to questions asked by the researcher. It's usually anonymous, and the responses are more free. And with their permission, their discussion can be recorded. And so you should prepare a limited number of questions, and they should be carefully designed to get at information you need in order to understand beliefs, attitudes, and values related to your speech. You need to be receptive to their comments, even if they're not what you want to hear. And finally, you can use existing data. You can draw information containing information about majors students have declared. So you can draw from those. So we already have an information book at SIUE. You can look at that and then draw conclusions based on that, or you can draw information out of there. Other sources like the Nielsen Company, Census Bureau, those sorts of things can also be examples of existing data that you use in your speech, or that you use to help analyze who will be in your audience. Then, talking about using your audience analysis, you want to prepare content with your audience in mind. And a good audience analysis can help focus your topic. You can also use your audience analysis to help ensure that the content of your speech will be clear and understandable. You do want to be careful using idioms. And an idiom is a word or phrase where the meaning cannot be predicted from normal dictionary definitions. So something like "it's raining cats and dogs" is an idiom. It's hard to understand, especially if you're a non-native speaker, a non-native English speaker. Then you want to adjust your speech based on your analysis. And the feedback you receive from your audience during your speech is valuable. So you can, watching your audience, this can help you make specific adjustments. So if you're talking and they look really confused, you can go back and kind of help clarify what you just said. And finally, adjustments to your speaking environment. Your situational analysis can reveal that you'll be speaking in a large auditorium when you thought you might have been talking in a nice, cozy conference room. So you might need to adjust there. You might also need to adjust visual aids, make them bigger or not use them at all, depending on your speaking environment. You might also need to use a microphone and get used to using that, holding it, or if it's a clip-on. You just have to be open to altering your original plan in order to ensure speaking effectiveness. So that is Chapter 5 on audience analysis.